Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you've never been an Audible customer and want to see what they offer, just go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And with this free 30-day trial, you'll have your pick of it all. You can hear books of all genres narrated by Jim Dale, Stephen Fry, Will Patton, Alex Hyde White, Jeff Brick, Neil Shaw, William Demerit, and even a few by me, George Sirois. So go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and start your own 30-day journey with Audible today.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to the Excelsior Journeys with George Sirois. Prepare to ignite.
Is there a burning desire within to share your creativity with the rest of the world? Do you insist on pursuing your passion by any means necessary? Then you are on an Excelsior journey, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Excelsior Journeys. My name is George Sirois. Thank you so much for being here. I have spoken many times about the positives of being a part of a writing community. It's something that I have been experiencing since 2013 when Rocking Horse Publishing decided to take a chance on relaunching Excelsior. And I was brought into an amazing group of different writers from all points of life and getting to not only know the basic writing community in St. Louis, but also getting to know both the Missouri Writers Guild and the St. Louis Writers Guild, which is its local chapter over here. It's been a real treat actually working with the St. Louis Writers Guild for the past several years as a member of them, as a friend to them, and it's wonderful how they are able to basically just, keep a real good group of aspiring and soon-to-be professional authors thriving with by offering everything that they do. And one of the great things about being a part of the St. Louis Writers Guild is you get to see some different examples of collaboration. And I'm here this week with two examples of how a collaboration can really thrive once they start working together. Jennifer Stolzer is a very accomplished illustrator as well as an author of several different children's books, as well as the young adult book Threadcaster. And Jessica Mathews is also a thriving children's book author and the author of the fantasy book Death Adjacent, and apparently there's a siren going on outside. I had nothing to do with that, but it is St. Louis in the city, so there you go. Just in case you've heard it, heard it going on just now. Anyway, to get back to what I was saying, Jessica and Jennifer have gone on to collaborate on several books together with the writing and the illustrating of different children's books. And it's a thrill to have them both here so that they can chat about their experiences writing separately and also working together as a group. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Stolzer, and I must also add the new president of the St. Louis Writers Guild, Jessica Mathews. How you guys doing today?
Hi. Doing good, George. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. So I think what we'll do is we'll go and start with Jen. If you can just go ahead and let us know your lightning bolt moment that I always like to talk about. What was that one moment that really kind of steered you in this wonderfully, interesting direction that you're currently in? What was it that made you go into writing and illustrating?
Well, the start of writing and drawing are things that I've done my entire life, so there's not really a lightning bolt moment for that. But the lightning bolt moment for becoming a freelance illustrator, I was working at a website job, and we were supposed to. I was hired originally to do a 3D interactive browsing environment, which then failed, and then we were doing 3D interactive concert streaming environments, and then that failed, and then we were trying to get in on the Apple iOS phone app game explosion, and that failed.
Wow.
And I found myself in charge of a department that couldn't get paid by our guys because, nothing was panning out, and I sat up one day and said, if I were in charge, this would be done by now.
Yeah.
And so then I told them I had 2 weeks and I was going to go be in charge of myself. I could do my own business, get all of it done without having to deal with these upper people who were preventing us from succeeding. So
Excellent.
That was when I went into business for myself, was when I realized that it's the only thing I was getting out of my bosses was pain.
Yeah. So when you say that the different ventures were failing, was it that they were completed and no one bit, or did they just fall apart in the early stages, or?
Well, it was a lot of venture capitalists who wanted to get in on what they thought was a good thing without knowing what was required to do the thing. Our interactive browsing environment was absolutely complete. Like, you could make your little avatar and you could run around, you could talk to other avatars, and listen to. We would live stream concerts, and the concerts would play on like a YouTube panel inside the 3D environment, and people could like watch the concert and then run around.
Wow.
But the bosses didn't know you needed to book server space for something like that, and hire a network person to monitor it and make sure it was running. And they found out that they needed to invest in that. They said, "Oh, we're not interested anymore," and then they dropped it after all the work we did.
It's heartbreaking. Like whenever you hear something like that. It sounds like it was a good concept.
Yeah, and they had the streaming going. Like, they were sending teams out to stream the concerts, so there was already an audience built in that were watching streaming concerts on their service.
Yeah.
But it's like they thought they kept trying to remake the wheel. They kept trying to make we're going to make a brand new industry, and we're going to be the ones to start it. It's like we're a 3D interactive concert-going environment, like you're going to a Grateful Dead concert and sitting around, in a drum circle. You can do that now. Like, we could do that out in the actual field. That sounds like a great idea. No one's done it before, but then it's, it's like the idea is one thing, but execution is even more than the idea.
I got you. Yeah.
So, that, in long form, that is my lightning bolt moment.
Okay. All right. So, Jess, what would you say your moment was when you decided that you wanted to get into this creative venture?
Well, like Jennifer, I've been writing since before I could even form words with my hands. So I always had stories, I always had notebooks, and I never really did anything with them because I thought I had to get a corporate job and make money and provide for myself, which is all nice if you can do it and you're happy. But when I got my corporate job, I was not happy. So I decided some things fell into place at that job where it was just more reasonable for me to quit and not stay. So when I quit, I said, I'm going to take a crummy job just to have money to pay my bills. And while I'm doing that part-time job, I'm going to work on the thing that I love. So I sat down and I'm like, what do I actually love? Because I had lost so much of myself at that last job because I was only doing that job that I didn't know who I was. So I took a little bit of time, figured out the things that I really liked, and once I figured those out, I joined the St. Louis Writers Guild so that I can meet people who liked the same things that I did. And when I started talking to them, I realized I didn't have to get an agent or a publisher or an editor and go through the whole process of traditional publishing. I could take all of the things I had already written and just put them out. So with a little help from Jennifer, who illustrated my children's books, I was able to put out The Old Man and the Pirate Princess, which is a story I actually wrote for my niece and my nephew when they were born. and it was one of the first things that I really wanted to put out. And I have a lot of stories that are not traditional in any way. You know, The Old Man, the Pirate Princess is about a pirate princess who misjudges an old man who ends up saving her from a farting ninja. Traditional publishing doesn't want that because there are too many different things in that story, and they can't say, well, this is a ninja story. It's not. Well, it's a pirate story. Well, it's not. It's a story about both. And traditional publishing doesn't like that because they can't put it into a category. They can't label it. I had the Grandpa Zoo, which we haven't illustrated to put out, but I actually tried to get the Grandpa Zoo traditionally published, and it is a cute picture book story about a zoo with different kinds of grandpas. And I wrote that for my father when he became a grandfather. So it's stuff that people are not going to want traditionally. You might want to hit pause.
Yeah.
They're going to fix our fridge. So because I knew traditional publishers wouldn't accept these, and I knew from being with the Writers Guild that I could publish them myself, I started self-publishing. And I actually tried to send in the Grandpa Zoo to a publisher, and they flat out did not want it. It was too weird. Everything I have is too weird. I have Ghost Don't Sneeze. I have The Lazy Vampire. I have all these things that nobody wants because I'm a little weird.
Well,
so I'm publishing them myself. So
yeah, and you know, like you're obviously finding an audience because we're all, you know, like we're all a little weird.
Yes.
You know, we are in this weird, wonderful business that we really kind of had no choice but to go into.
Yeah, and I'm finding that kids don't want samey. They don't want the same thing that every other kid has. They want things that are a little different. They want things that represent them. They want a story about a worm. They want a story about a ghost. They want stories where the character isn't necessarily some child who gets in trouble, who does a thing. They want to have those different stories because their imaginations are already there, but there's nothing in traditional publishing that can meet their expectations.
Yeah. So, so Jen, like while you were also in the St. Louis Writers Guild, how did you discover them?
My dear friend Kathleen Kayembe was participating, and she knew that I wrote because we grew up writing fan fiction together. We would all pick our favorite character, and then we would write stories about going on adventures with them. And it was so it's like we sort of became friends because we were writers. And she was going to the St. Louis Writers Guild's open mic nights.
Oh,
and
nice.
She's like, why don't you come to open mic night and read your stuff? And I was like, no, I can't do that. And, of course, why not? Why can't I do that? I can absolutely do that. So I started coming to open mic, and open mic was my primary gateway into the guild.
Oh, nice.
And after making friends there, they said, well, you know, we do workshops. So I started coming to workshops, and before I knew it, I was a member, and then before I knew it, I was the secretary. So one thing
kind of grabs you in, and pretty.
Well, the guild, like other places, they can sense the people who have that plug-in nature that wants to. Is like you can tell the difference between someone who is just there to, have a good time, and those that are there to be engaged and be helpful and want to have that sort of experience. And they read that in me, and considering I've been secretary for, half a decade, it's probably a pretty good sign that they were right.
Oh yeah. So with the writing and everything, what made you like kind of transition from the fan fiction that you grew up doing to the fiction of your own?
Well, the idea for Threadcaster was always sort of sitting around in the back of my head, and I would just write for fun, and that's what fan fiction is. It's like you become attached to these characters, and you want to write about them more and have more adventures with them. And, and let's be honest, when I'm writing fan fiction, I really just want them all to hug. Yeah. I want them all to have a nice hug and tell each other how much they love each other. And if I can put one in the hospital so everyone has to bring them like blankets and stuff, I'm there too.
Nice. So, always a good thing.
Yeah, so the story for Threadcaster started with like the characters and the world building because it's a fantasy story that takes place in a fantasy land, and the magic system is based on like Cat's Cradle string games. And I hadn't seen anyone do that before. So I had the idea for the string games, and then I started building characters, and before long I was imagining them in the same way that I was imagining characters other people invented, and that's when I started writing it down.
Excellent.
Actually, I have NaNoWriMo, the November National Novel Writers Month, to thank for the first draft, the 0 draft of Threadcaster. It wasn't the first draft because I kept nothing of it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, I threw the whole thing out. It was awful.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
Wow.
I didn't even keep I kept the character names, and I knew the 2 mains and a couple of the supporting characters, but by the time I didn't win, because to win is to write 50,000 words in a month. That's what NaNoWriMo is.
Yeah.
I didn't win that year, but I made probably about half. And at 25K, I was like, this is trash.
Yeah.
But I'd gotten out all of these ideas I had, and it started me writing real outlines and actually thinking about how things work and what the themes I wanted were. And so that's where Threadcaster, which is my first self-published, it's a YA novel.
Yeah.
It's a very large YA novel. And it sort of is the culmination of all of my favorite lessons that I've learned by writing fanfic. And I wrote some original short stories. You always have to write for class, and you come up with ideas and things, but that was really the first one that I got as involved as I would if I was writing about, Final Fantasy.
Nice. Very cool. And Jess, we, you were talking about the kids' books that you were working on, but there's also your book, Death Adjacent, that really just kind of like, it's definitely like a hard right turn from the children's books. But that's another beautiful thing about self-publishing is you get to just tell the stories that you want to tell. So where did that one come up?
So I guess you could say that is my adult version of fan fiction, because I had an idea for a character that I really loved, and took me 15 years and so many iterations of the storyline. If you look at where the story started and where it actually ended up, none of the Egyptian lore was in it at all to begin with. It was a totally different thing. And just one day it clicked after I wrote many, many different versions and drafts and was like, I'm fanficting my own story. No, that's not going to work. I don't know what's happening. It just came to me like, why am I not doing Egyptian?
Yeah.
And Egyptian, I love Egyptian mythology and storylines. I love Greek mythology and storylines. I love several things, but it never occurred to me. Egyptian mythology wasn't something I was totally obsessed with, and I had to write a book with a sarcophagus in it. It just was something that I said, none of my things are working. Why aren't they working? Let me rewrite this one draft. And then I started putting in Egyptian things without realizing it. And I was like, okay, hold up. I have to do research now so that I can actually write this. So basically it was a fan fiction of my own story that I've been writing for 15 years. But the storylines just come to me, and they either work or they don't. Yeah. And if they don't work, sometimes they can be turned into something else, like Death Adjacent. But if they can't be turned into anything, they sit in my ideas folder, and then maybe eventually that character or that thought or that idea will get put into something else. But I probably have 20 stories I half wrote in the ideas folder, and a new one. I was actually just telling Jennifer this morning, Hades is talking to me. So now I want to write a story about him. But do I have time? No. Right. I really don't have any time to do that. Yeah. But if he doesn't shut up, the next book might be about him instead of the follow-up to Death Adjacent like I want. So
it's almost like you have like a group of bench players. Yes. That are just like, I can play. I can play. Yeah.
Put me in, coach. Put me in. It really, when I write a longer story that's not a picture book, it's dependent on whose voice is the loudest inside of my head. Yeah. So that's just how I write young adults and adult fiction. Right. Just whoever's voice is the loudest, you get the grease. So
yeah, absolutely. And some of you also may recognize Jen's voice, Jessica's voice from Right Pack Radio, the podcast which is currently in reruns over at over at Blog Talk Radio. Now, how did you guys get involved with the Right Pack?
The Right Pack is actually, I guess you could consider me a founding member, I suppose. The Right Pack was an evolved version of our weekly writing group. So we were a writing group that we met at a coffee shop every week, and we would have these conversations. And director David Allen Lucas stood up one day and said, "Why don't we tape these?" Because someone would show up with a question, and then we would debate the topic as a big group roundtable, and that's where the Right Pack started. So I was at that roundtable that first started, so I became one of the founding members of the podcast.
Nice. Very nice. And I know, like, in 2016, that was when the episode regarding audiobooks was aired, and David invited me to come in and be chime in and everything regarding my thoughts on audiobooks and how to get going with them. If you want to like hire them out, hire your talent out. If you want to do it yourself, whatever the case. And based on that, David, brought me in, which I'm very proud to be so. Jess, how did you come involved?
I think David just said, "Hey, you want to come do this thing?" And I was like, "Cool." That was the whole conversation.
Sometimes it's really all it takes, yeah. But that's great. I mean, like, he saw that there was that in you.
Yeah, I think Jen was the first one that I did about tables and swag, because
it was like setting up a table.
Setting up a table for a con and doing the swag, and I think that he saw everything that I did for my tables, and I have a pirate table. I have a kids table because I sell picture books, and my main book is my pirate book. So I have pirate booty, I have ring pops and candy necklaces, and I have picking pirate names and putting them on name tags, and I always get swag with my logo on it that Jen made me. So I think that year I had can cozies with my logo on them.
Yep.
So I think he just saw the things that I did for free swag for people and how I was marketing myself. And I think I actually told him at Archon last year, it's a science fiction and fantasy convention, I handed out can cozies. And every time someone walked by my table, they had their soda bottle or their water bottle in my cozy, and they were advertising for me during the con. So I think that's the reason why he said, "Do you want to come talk about this?" Because you had some good ideas for marketing and swag and setting up your tables. So
cozies, that's a fantastic idea too. Like, I've seen them on a few other tables, but now that you just, the way you said that, it was like, that's right. Like, everyone's just walking around.
Yep.
And everyone can use it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great with your logo on it, or if you have a quote from your book that you use.
Right.
Or sometimes authors will sign a quote from their book, or they'll sign something specific. Like with Death Adjacent, I'll sign "What will you do with your eternity?" because that's one of the themes in the book. So I could put that on a can cozy, and everybody will know what that's from because they've read the book. So it's a good idea if you're doing cozies or magnets or bumper stickers or whatever to put your logo or that saying or theme from the book, so everybody says, "Oh, I know what that is."
Yeah. So so Jen, when Jess said that you had done her logo for her. Was that channel kind of like the starting point for both of you to realize, like, hey, you want to work together on a project, or is this?
No, she already had me under a barrel. So. No, she asked me to do her children's book for her because I'm a children's book illustrator. Yeah. So we were both at the Writers Guild. We both volunteered at Writers in the Park. We hung out together, and she's like, "I want to do this children's book," and so we got to work on that. And once we'd gotten to work on that, then it was, "Hey, I want to do this other thing," and then I'm like, "Okay, $100."
There you go.
There we go. Yeah. And we do enough. Like, the two of us pair up at tables a lot because I am her illustrator. So it's kind of handy to say you can get signatures from the author and the illustrator, and then I have my own things as well.
You have there's Dog Park.
I have Dog Park, and I have the expanding Threadcaster universe, which now goes all the way down to picture books. It goes Y to picture books,
huh?
And the only thing I'm missing is middle grade, and that's because I'm still writing it. So, so it started with that, and since we do tables so much, a lot of times we even do, resorts to the barter system. Hey, I'll book this table. Can you do me a logo? Yeah, sure.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna get this swag. You want to split it halvesies? It's like, yeah, I'll put it on your tab for the next picture book. So because we work together so much, and we know that we work well together, then there's that element of trust to it. That it's like, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. Yeah. And just kind of keep your own records, and that formality has fallen off at this point.
Right.
For better or worse. I think it's for better because it feels a lot more like a partnership as opposed to just being hired to do a job. Right. When you're hired to do a job, then it's all about pleasing the other person. Yeah, you hired me, your money is going to me, I provide you with product. Right. Versus a partnership in which I had this idea, read over my draft, the draft is good. What do you want to what do you want your illustrations to look like? I had this idea. What do you think about that? I like that idea. And then it improves the books overall.
It's almost like what you guys are doing right now is kind of like the Marvel way of comics. Like the way that Stan Lee was so under the gun to write all these different scripts that he just gave little summaries to all the artists and said this is what I want for this issue. This is what I want for that issue. And then let the artists kind of, come up with their own way to tell that story. Mm-hmm. And, that's how, that's how Jack Kirby created the Silver Surfer. Those little things just, kind of get thrown in there.
Well, she's still in charge of the words.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but that is a really good example because Poppy, the pirate parrot, never would have been in the
star
book.
Character of the pirate princess.
Actually, when I wrote The Old Man and the Pirate Princess, and I illustrated it myself quite horribly.
With magic markers.
With magic markers. And I went to Office Depot and made copies and gave it to the kids when they were born, and my sisters. And there wasn't a parrot. I mean, how can you have a pirate with no parrot? But when I gave it to Jen and I said, here's my thing, she said, okay, let me mock this up, but also, do you know that you have no parrot? And I was like, no, that didn't even occur to me. So we wrote the parrot in. Yeah. And I only wrote it in because Jen said, you have no parrot. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I had no parrot. Mm-hmm. So it really has been like a partnership from the beginning because she's like, hey, what about this thing? And I'm like, I cannot believe I left that out. That seems like an integral part of the whole story. Yeah. So,
but she's got a tattoo and an eye patch, and if you don't want to give her a hook hand, she at least needs
a parrot. Yeah. I'm like, as long as it sparkles.
Yeah. Anytime she's a sparkly parrot.
Anytime she says, "Hey, I think you need this," I said, "Can it sparkle?" And she's like, "Oh, yes."
I have a brush for it.
Yeah. And the sparkle, it was the bird, right? Is that what that's what Poppy. Your logo is now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Poppy. Well, Poppy was my first logo.
Yeah.
My current logo is actually the original design for my business. When I first put out the Pirate Princess, I wanted to brand myself as a business and put things out there and tell people about who I was. And I was already working on Death Adjacent, and Death Adjacent had in it a phoenix and a genie and some other things, and those things are not in that book now that it's Egyptian. Yeah. However, they will play a part in the future. Don't worry.
Nice.
But that is what my logo is coming. My logo is a phoenix coming out of a genie lamp with some smoke. So I actually redid my business cards not that long ago with the logo that she turned pink. It's hot pink because everything has to be pink.
Now it's Poppy because it's a big sparkly bird coming out of a lamp.
Yes. So. But yeah, so originally, because I was more child-focused with the picture books, I did Poppy on my cards as my logo, just because she was one of my characters. But now I'm rebranding again, I guess, and using my original logo with the phoenix. So
cool. Very nice. So since you guys have talked about how you've been to different cons together, one of the things that I've also noticed you guys are both very proficient in is social media. And when it comes to different posts that you guys put up. But we don't see you. We see a specific figure in different ones.
She should talk about that.
So, this is Jennifer's fault.
Yeah, I can take the blame, but really, this is her bag.
Because she bought Bucky for me.
Yeah, I bought you Bucky. You were jealous of Londo.
I am obsessed with the Winter Soldier. I think he got a bad rap, and...
Well, he was, his movie was in my opinion, still the best out of all the MCU. But that's just me,
Yes, and oddly enough, he has the least amount of screen time in that movie than he did in Civil War, so whatever.
Yeah, right.
But since the Captain America, the First Avenger, and then the Winter Soldier movie came out, I've been kind of obsessed with Bucky, who is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, in case you don't know. So since Jen got the figure for me, Bucky has become my booth babe, and whenever we do things, I always play a game, Where's Bucky? And put that on my Facebook page, so you have to find him on my table. I always give him outfits. So he'll be in an 80s outfit for PenCon. If I can get together a good sci-fi outfit, he's in a good sci-fi outfit. Sometimes I leave him for Archon in his uniform because we meet a lot of Captain Americas, and he takes pictures with Captain Americas anytime we see one.
That's great.
He actually at Planet Comic Con this year took a picture with the Winter Soldier, so that was fun. But basically anytime I do anything and I want to post it to my author page on social media, I will make sure he's in the picture, because a lot of people are looking for him now at my tables and not looking for me. So I hope Marvel doesn't mind that he sells my books, but but he's my little booth babe, and we do lots of games and different things with him, so he's really great at drawing people's attention to the table.
And of course there's the Instagram account, Hey Steve, it's Bucky.
Yes.
Which is, I think it's just fantastic. I think that's a terrific name for it. So.
Yeah, he only posts to Instagram when he has something to say. He's not an avid poster. He's not an influencer. He won't post every day. But when he's got something to say, he's got a cell phone in his hand, and he calls Steve, and he says, Hey Steve, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
So my favorite is when he took a picture with a little can of Tic Tacs, and he said, Hey Steve, it's Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the jokes from one of the movies. So he'll only do things if he has purpose in there.
Right. That's fantastic. So, and Jen, we always find Londo.
Londo stopped making appearances.
Really?
Yeah.
From Babylon 5, just in case you guys don't know.
He's still my favorite ever.
Yeah.
He mostly was along for moral support. So he's not part of my brand, but he is Bucky's best friend.
Yeah.
Since now that Steve is an old man.
Yep.
And they take pictures together sometimes. But Londo was actually like my little writing totem.
Yeah.
Because he was an example of exceptional character writing in that show. So he would come with me to conventions only because he would come to me when I was out writing.
Right.
So I'm not trying to replace my face with his face so much as he's tiny and he looks really funny next to giant cups of coffee.
Right.
Yes.
So with all of this, you guys have where do you see like the St. Louis Writers Guild going, like in the future? Like you're seeing, you guys have had some very positive collaborations, obviously still having them. And do you think that will hopefully be the impetus for other people to kind of do the same? Or do you think there's hope for that?
I think people are already doing that. One of the biggest things that I talk about when I do panels for the guild or I meet people. Last weekend I was at a con just meeting people who are new writers, and I tell them every time, develop a network with other writers. Writing is a solitary job. Even if you have a co-author, you're really doing this by yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't get out there and if you don't network and you don't meet other writers and develop those relationships, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So anytime I talk to new writers, I tell them that, and I let them know you don't have to join a writer's guild. You could meet other people who like the same thing that you do. It helps to join a writer's guild, though, because they will have things like workshops. So you will be able to learn about your craft, but you'll also be able to network with other writers and professionals like illustrators, book cover designers, editors. Those are all people that you need if you want to actually publish. But if you're just so new you don't even have a story written, you still need to have that support from the other writers. So guilds are really great for that.
Yeah.
Also, you can never learn too much about writing. Like, the industry is constantly changing, and that's included both in traditional and self-publishing, independent publishing. So having a connection to a group of people who know more than you do gives you access to, places to ask specific questions, or keeping your thumb on the pulse of the changing industry, because the rules are constantly being changed, being redefined, new terms. You got to know all the buzzwords. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to spend all day, every day on Twitter reading every think piece you can find, or hanging out with people who also find it interesting and starting conversations.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mentioned before about social media. Jen, where can our listeners find you?
I'm Jennifer Stolzer, all one word, all lowercase. That's Stolzer. On Twitter and on Tumblr. If you want to look at more illustration stuff, I have an illustration page on Facebook, Jennifer Stolzer Illustration, and you can search me. I have a DeviantArt out there somewhere. My website is jenniferstolzer.com.
Excellent.
So you can find links to all those things there.
Excellent. Jess, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is jessicamathewsbooks.com. It's Mathews. And I have links to Jen's pages and her websites. I have links to the Writers Guild and some other resources for writers. And you can also find me on Facebook at Jessica Mathews Books. That's my author page. And on Redbubble. Everything is Jessica Mathews Books, so it makes it easy.
Excellent. So yes, by all means, like writers, out there, aspiring authors, those that are really ramping up and getting themselves going, network. We cannot stress how important it is to get yourself out there. Get yourself around people that are like you. You are going to find that this really is like a really great, like haven that you can find for yourself, for your sanity, for your craft, for everything. And it's just going to be nothing but a positive effect on you. Who knows? You could wind up meeting someone who will be a collaborator in the near future. So please keep getting yourself out there. So for Jessica Mathews, for Jennifer Stolzer, this is George Sirois saying to all of you, ever upward. I'll see you next week.